Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to replace the steering servo on the /2-wheel drive with LCG chassis. You will need to remove the existing steering servo. To do that, first remove one screw here, one screw here, one screw here, and one screw here to remove the receiver cover. After that, you can unplug the current receiver you have inside and route it out of the receiver. After that, you will need to remove one screw here, one screw here, one screw here, and when you flip it over, 3 screws here. So you have the 3 screws removed. You can go on to remove the bottom skid plate. And for this, you can just pull the servo wire out of the hole here, slip it out. After you lift the skid plate, you will need to remove the servo saver with this screw. The servo saver removed, we can now go on to remove the servo with these 4 screws. 4 screws removed, the servo should be able to slide right out. Now let's switch in the new servo. When you put it back in, note that the spline of the servo should be facing the rear of the car. Now we will have to route the wires through the little hole in the chassis. And put the skid plate back on where it was before. To put everything back together, you will need to put this 3 screws back in. Flip the vehicle over and put the 3 screws on top of the chassis back in. Now before we install the servo horn, we need to make sure that the servo is centered. You have to plug the servo in to test. Now I currently don't have an ESC installed on this vehicle, so I will need to also do that. Now we can turn the transmitter on and turn on the ESC. So before you do it, you have to make sure that the sub trim is set to 0 so that the steering is centered. When installing the servo horn, you have to make sure that the angle between the servo horn and the steering linkage is close to 90 degrees, so that the steering servo has even throws on both sides. Now it's okay if it's slightly off, as we can use the steering trim to correct that. Now all we have to do is to put the screw back on and set the steering trim. Now, I'm not going to show how to set the steering trim, since different radios have different ways of doing so, but it shouldn't be too difficult. And once the steering trim is set, you're done.